Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I found you and you found me. That's great on this Wednesday morning, full of news. Not much of it good, except for the Mideast peace plan coming out of the White House. More on that coming up later in the program. National Security Advisor Robert C. O'Brien will be joining me later in the program to discuss that plan. Let me bring up to speed on coronavirus first. I believe that for the foreseeable future, I'll be beginning every program with an update. The death toll has risen to 132 in China, with more than 5,974 confirmed cases of the infection. As of their Wednesday morning in China, a day-over-day increase of more than 1,000. Germany reported 3 new cases late on Tuesday and said they are all connected to the country's first patient, a 33-year-old man who is most likely infected by a Chinese business visitor from Shanghai who met him at a German company workshop. So a Chinese traveler went to a German shop, infected the person at the German shop, who in turn infected 3 other people. That's called human-to-human transmission and a domestic transmission. Deeply, deeply troubling. British Airways has suspended all flights from the mainland China terminals. And on Wednesday, they said 132 people had died. And this is a little bit later than the earlier report I read you from 8 hours ago. The number's up to 5,974 cases. 6 countries, including China, have confirmed human-to-human transmission. 6. Those include those 4 cases in Germany connected to a single person. That is a very worrisome sign for containment. Senator Tom Cotton yesterday called for the suspension of all direct flights to the United States from China. And Hong Kong is facing a nurses' strike today, I am told, because they are concerned that 150,000 people came over from the mainland in the last week, flooding into Hong Kong and increasing the risk of a rapid spread of the disease there. The difficulty that we all face, what's going to happen? That's a known unknown, as Secretary Rumsfeld would say. Americans evacuated from China are undergoing screening in Alaska before they're going to be quarantined. A chartered plane carrying more than 200 Americans from Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in China, landed in Anchorage shortly after 9:20 p.m. local time on contagious disease. Everybody can be fine, and you're going to have 240 carriers. I really don't know what they're going to do. All I know is that one of the questions I'll be asking Robert O'Brien, who, by the way, I'll say it 3 times today. He's a very dear friend. He's one of my closest friends on the planet. So you can discount whatever I ask him by that. I always disclose friendships. My former law partner. But I'll be asking him about coronavirus. Now, apparently, markets are not as spooked as they were on Monday, because scientists are working to develop a vaccine capable of stopping the spread of the mysterious new coronavirus. Government scientists in China, the U.S., and Australia, as working at Johnson & Johnson, Modern Therapeutics, Inovio Pharmaceuticals are all rushing to get a vaccine out. So this is not the great influenza of 1918 and 1920. We've got better science. So there's no doom of the race. We'll eventually figure it out. It's just a lot of people can get sick, and many people will die before we're done with this. And containment is called for. Let's check the market. Brought to you by Birch Gold. I've been telling you to buy gold for months. I always tell you to buy gold, just a little bit at a time. Diversify your portfolio. And right now, gold is dropped back a little bit to 1569, down 0.01% from yesterday. An ounce, 1569.60 an ounce. And Birch Gold sells only in $5,000 or more increments. So if you want to buy from Birch Gold, you go to hughgold.com, or you call 800-434-GOLD, 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 and get an order from them. You can also shift part of your IRA or 401k over to physical metals if you'd like, and they'll give you all the information. Birch Gold, very trustworthy. They don't deal in smaller amounts, though. They deal in $5,000 or more. So if you want to put some in your safety deposit box, don't keep it at home, by the way. Just don't do that. 800-434-GOLD. Yesterday, markets were great. It's sort of a relief bounce. The Dow was up 187 points. NASDAQ was up 130. The S&P was up 32. This morning, the S&P is up 6 in pre-market trading. The NASDAQ is green, up 27. The Dow is up 41. Apple had great earnings. They're up 2% in pre-market trading to $324 a share. Oil is gone up a little bit to $53.97, and the Fed is expected to hold rates exactly where they are. Wall Street Journal story this morning, officials are focused on fine-tuning their balance sheet and inflation-targeting policy, but notable announcements aren't expected on Wednesday. That will buoy the market as well. Britain is the big story of the morning. They've done a stupid thing. They're allowing Huawei back into their telecom, and they're explaining themselves all over themselves. Priti Patel, Boris Johnson, they've made a horrific choice. And by the way, they're not going to get a free trade deal with America. You don't. We beg them. We beg them. We beg them. Don't use Huawei. They're using Huawei. Well, screw them. And I like these guys. I was very happy for Bojo. I'm glad he won. He could have done a lot of good things, and he punted it away on the first week. It's that first month. Absolutely incredible. Now on the peace plan. Oh, on the impeachment. Mitch says, I don't know if I got enough votes, which means Mitch has enough votes, in my view, to shut it down on Friday. They heard yesterday there are reports that Martha McSally and Cory Gardner looked around the room and said, you guys trying to kill us? Asking for witnesses. Everybody knows how this is going to end. Even if you read all of John Bolton's book, and even if John Bolton's book says what the New York Times says it says, it isn't going to change a vote in this room. There's no way the president is going to be acquitted. There's a story yesterday that Manchin and Kristen Sinema from Arizona and Doug Jones from Alabama are considering acquittal. I don't know that there's even one Republican that's considering conviction. It's all a question about how long will witnesses go on. If they vote for witnesses, things are going to go on for weeks. It really will. So I'm hoping this is done by Saturday. Mitch McConnell, the Hill, according to Joe Concha, last night, he's got it. Other people say he doesn't have the 51 votes or the 50 votes he needs to shut it down. We'll find out Friday. But thank goodness the opening arguments are done. Opening arguments are done. And Don Lemon has apologized. First of all, here's the original from Monday night. Don Lemon with Rick, our friend Rick Wilson, yucking it up at the expense of Trump voters. Cut number 36.
And obviously it's false. And look, he also knows deep in his heart that Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world. And so that's partly him playing to their base and playing to their audience, the credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one, and y'all elitists are dumb.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading, your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
All those lines on the map.
All right, so Don Lemon dug himself a hole. Here's what he said last night, cut 35.
And one final note that I have for you, because this is personally important to me to address this, okay? Ask anyone who knows me. They'll tell you, I don't believe in belittling people, belittling anyone for who they are, for what they believe, or where they're from. During an interview on Saturday night, one of my guests said something that made me laugh. And while in the moment, I found that joke humorous. And I didn't catch everything that was said. Just to make this perfectly clear, I was laughing at the joke and not at any group of people.
That was Don Lemon apologizing last night. Well done, Don. I don't believe in cancel culture. Apology accepted. Let's move on to the important news, the Middle East peace plan, which I'll update you on when we return to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Good morning to you. Donald Trump in the East Room yesterday with Benjamin Netanyahu. I talked to a person in the room, not named Robert O'Brien. He's joining me later. Said that Netanyahu and Trump can command a room like two people you have never seen before. People were in awe of the performance. Will the plan survive? I don't know. It's the most opportunity presented to Palestinians in 50 years. They should grab it, take the money, take the land, take East Jerusalem as their capital. That's what they should do. But as the late Golda Meir said, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Donald Trump, cut number 8.
Young people across the Middle East are ready for a more hopeful future. And governments throughout the region are realizing that terrorism and Islamic extremism are everyone's common enemy. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of meeting with both the Prime Minister of Israel and a man that's working very hard to become the Prime Minister of Israel in the longest-running election of all time, Benny Gantz of the Blue and White Party. And both leaders joined me to express their support for this effort, proving that the state of Israel looking for peace and that peace transcends politics by any measure, unmeasurable. That's what they want. On my first trip overseas as president, I visited the Holy Land of Israel. I was deeply moved and amazed by what this small country had achieved in the face of overwhelming odds and never-ending threats. The state of Israel comprises only a minuscule amount of land in the Middle East, and yet it has become a thriving center of democracy, innovation, culture, and commerce. Israel is a light unto the world. The hearts and history of our people are woven together. The land of Israel is an ancient home, a sacred place of worship, and a solemn promise to the Jewish people that we will never again repeat history's darkest hour.
He continued, cut number 9, Donald Trump in the East Room yesterday.
During my trip to Israel, I also met with Palestinian President Abbas in Bethlehem. I was saddened by the fate of the Palestinian people. They deserve a far better life. They deserve the chance to achieve their extraordinary potential. Palestinians have been trapped in a cycle of terrorism, poverty, and violence, exploited by those seeking to use them as pawns to advance terrorism and extremism. I returned from my visit determined to find a constructive path, and it's got to be a very powerful path forward in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. To further this effort, I also met with President Abbas at the White House. Forging peace between Israelis and Palestinians may be the most difficult challenge of all. All prior administrations, from President Lyndon Johnson, have tried and bitterly failed. But I was not elected to do small things or shy away from big problems.
He was not elected, and he went forward to talk about what the plan wants to do. Cut number 10.
BB, we have a lot of powerful people in this room, a lot of the people that can help make it work. So that's quite a thunderous applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will form a joint committee with Israel to convert the conceptual map into a more detailed and calibrated rendering so that recognition can be immediately achieved. We will also work to create a contiguous territory within the future Palestinian state for when the conditions for statehood are met, including the firm rejection of terrorism.
The Palestinian people deserve a state that is free of terrorism. They deserve a state of free elections. They deserve their own state with East Jerusalem as their capital. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are attempting to give it to them, along with $50 billion worth of investment. Don't say no, Palestinians. Don't say no. Come right back. It's Admiral Stavridis time on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined now by Admiral James Stavridis, retired United States Navy, former commander of Southern Command, also former commander of the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. I got all my titles bollocks up this morning because I got so much to talk to him about. I want to start, Admiral, with coronavirus. You were a prophet. I'm sorry you were a prophet. Last week on the program when you said these things can go very big, very fast, and in fact, this one has. What's your assessment of the danger degree at this point?
I think it's still very concerning, deeply concerning, Hugh. Now let's put it in perspective. On a scale that kind of runs from Spanish influenza 100 years ago, which infected 40% of the world's population and had a mortality rate of 20%. Let's call that kind of the dark end of the spectrum. At the other end is just another bad flu season. We're kind of parked in the middle here. I think the best analog at the moment, and let's hope it stays this contained, would be what happened with Ebola virus in Western Africa, which deeply affected 3 relatively small countries, killed thousands, but not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. But this thing is still going vertical in China, and whether or not China has the resources to control it remains to be seen, and certainly cases are popping globally. Now, I'm scheduled to fly to Singapore, for example, in about 2 weeks, and I am starting to focus very deeply on this, as I'm sure many international travelers are. So multiply that times hundreds of thousands of people debating whether to get on airplanes. You're going to see the global economy really see impact here if this thing stretches out. So we're in a dangerous period right now. We ought to be focusing on doing everything we can scientifically and also in the traditional means of control, which are quarantine. And that's what you're going to see much more of, I think, over the weeks ahead.
You know, Admiral, you and I were together at the Nixon Library in Yorba Linda not long ago. And yesterday I had the team there run a model where we dropped off 20% and 50% in visitorship because so much of our visitorship is from abroad. And, it's devastating to a little museum, a museum that does very well and financially is sound, but still a museum. I wonder what it will do to national and international economic transfers that are typically associated with travel if, in fact, people begin to postpone travel.
Oh, exactly. And the event that I'm going to in Singapore is already considering that. And it's a big event with a lot of international activity. And that's just one very small example of what could multiply. What is worth considering at the moment, which many folks are not thinking about, is ultimately what is the role of the military in something like this, something you and I talk about a fair amount. I've had some experience with this dealing with cholera in Haiti when I was commander of U.S. Southern Command, and I watched very closely as my fellow combatant commanders dealt with Ebola in West Africa. Here's the good news, Hugh. The U.S. military and many militaries have a lot of capability they can bring to bear against something like this. Obviously, medical establishments, but also logistics, power generation, water, ability to guard and execute quarantines. Again, that's at the dark end of the spectrum. We're not remotely there yet, but I would guess our combatant commanders who apportion and operate our forces globally are dusting off their contingency plans for dealing with pandemics.
Now, Admiral, a few facts for our audience. China said Wednesday that 132 people had died from the virus, and they confirmed their case count went up 25% overnight to 5,974. Great Britain has suspended direct flights to mainland China. Germany has 4 cases of domestic transmission, meaning a visitor from China entered a German shop, infected someone there who went on to infect 3 other people. That's the sort of domestic transmission that worries people. And there are, I believe, 8 countries with coronavirus, and a plane load of people from China now leaving Anchorage, headed for Moreno Valley to the Old March Air Force Base. Tom Cotton yesterday called for the suspension of all flights from China because it's an asymptomatic disease while contagious for 10 to 14 days. That's what we believe at this point. Do you agree with Senator Cotton, Admiral?
It is certainly number one on the list of measures that the administration should be considering. I think we're probably not quite there, but Senator Cotton, whom, as you know, I know well and respect quite a bit, typically will think ahead of the problem. He's a pretty good indicator of where events are going internationally for the administration. So I would say let's gather data for another few days. If this continues to go vertical in terms of numbers in China, and by the way, you really do have to question thousands of cases and only just over 100 deaths. That seems improbable. We'll see those numbers, I think, refined over the days ahead. But let's face it, China has every instinct on the one hand to try and shut this thing down, obviously. But on the other hand, they don't want to crater their economy, which would be the economy that would immediately feel a massive hit if other nations started taking the measures you described. So in terms of Senator Cotton's proposal, I'd say we're close, but we're not quite there yet.
All right, now let's turn to the Middle East peace process unveiled by President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. The National Security Council, headed by Robert O'Brien, my dear friend who will join me on the program a little bit later today, first time since he became the NSA, put out a tweet 16 hours ago saying, quote, "This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to bring lasting peace to the Holy Land," close quote. Your assessment of the plan and its prospects, Admiral Stavridis?
The plan is certainly not perfect because there is no perfect plan to solve Middle East peace. But Palestine, are you listening? I'm sure the National Security Advisor is going to make this point as well. This is the best deal the Palestinians are going to get, and they need to wake up and just realize that. What this plan does is it gives them an entryway into a capital in and around Jerusalem, probably in East Jerusalem. It establishes a two-state solution, an independent, sovereign Palestine. It lays out the possibility of significant aid to the Palestinians from the United States. And it, I think, offers a real pathway toward resolving these ongoing issues. The bad news for the Palestinians, it effectively legitimizes the vast majority of the settlements. But look, that's a reality at this point. So I would say to the Palestinians, and I have visited Palestine, I've been many times in the West Bank. Part of my remit, my responsibility as Commander U.S. European Command, Hugh, was Israel and the relationships between the U.S. and the Palestinians in a security perspective. So I know this turf pretty well. This is a good deal from the perspective of the best deal the Palestinians can get. It's kind of the last exit before the tunnel. And I'll close by saying where the U.S. is headed in this, if the Palestinians don't take this deal, they are going to be marginalized in the Arab world, and the U.S. and our other Arab allies will simply continue to move the Arabs and the Israelis closer and closer together. That's why this is the last shot at it for the Palestinians.
Now, Admiral, if I were king of the forest, not queen, not duke, not earl in the Palestinian Authority, I'd take whatever was on the table. I'd double the number to $100 billion. I'd ask for a little bit more land. I'd make sure there was a contiguous corridor. I'd ask for something that Israel wasn't likely to give me, but I'd counter. I would counter. Do you think they'll counter?
Well, first of all, they need you to negotiate for them. That's to coin a phrase, that's pretty good art of the deal right there. But unfortunately, I don't see how they work themselves out of the political box they've put themselves in. And the other difficulty they have is the division between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and the Hamas government running Gaza. That's a very difficult set of imperatives to square. Here's how to solve it, to the degree it can be solved. It's the Arabs, the rest of the Arab world. It is to get particularly the Saudis, the Egyptians, and Jordanians. All of them have a vested interest in this deal. We need the Arab world to put the pressure on the Palestinians, to bring them to the table. And I think, as Jared Kushner said, there is plenty of meat on the bone, I think I'm quoting him here, to negotiate. So they should counter. They could get an even better deal than is on offer. The only way to get there is to get to the table.
Now, Admiral, you and I both know Ambassador Youssef Al Otaiba from United Arab
Yep.
Emirates. He's quoted in the New York Times this morning as calling the plan, quote, a serious initiative that addresses many issues raised over the years. Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a muted statement saying it appreciates the efforts of President Trump's administration to develop a comprehensive plan. Favorable comments from Bahrain, Oman, and Egypt. It does seem to me that the Sunni states are ready, willing, and able to back any counter from the Palestinian Authority.
100% agree with that. And let's face it, other than the Palestinians, those who would find this the best deal, and the Israelis, of course, because they would settle a long-standing set of border issues, are the Arab states. So I think there is a shape of a deal here. The key is going to be the Palestinians, and the key to the Palestinians is getting the rest of the Arab world quietly pushing. And by the way, just picture how 20 years ago, if there had been a peace plan proposed that legitimized settlements and effectively gave the Israelis a pretty good deal, the Arab world would have exploded in anger. All the streets would have been on fire. We're not remotely seeing that, and that is another indicator it ought to be to the Palestinians to take this deal, take it as in get to the table, negotiate it to the best place you can take it, and I think this one could happen.
Now, last question, Admiral. I don't know that you know Abbas. I know you don't know anything from Hamas, but Abbas is an old man, and Arafat died, and he's reviled now by history. When do people begin to realize life is short? If you're going to go down in the history books, don't go down in the history books as a corrupt autocrat who acquired money and forgave your people's future or traded your people's future for that money.
Right about now, in the Palestinian world, those conversations are happening, and we see them, frankly, all over the world at the moment. And this is part of why you're seeing not only what was mistakenly called the Arab Spring, but riots in a wide variety of countries against that aging generation that they feel are clinging to old ideology at the expense of the future. This will not be the last example of that. Abbas has a moment in history that he could step up and deliver for his people. I hope he takes it.
Admiral James Stavridis, always a pleasure. Safe travels to you. Talk to you next week, and hopefully at that point, coronavirus will not have doubled again. I'm talking with you each week about it during the outbreak of it, and I appreciate your time, Admiral. Thank you. Time for me to remind all of you, ReliefFactor.com, not going to stop coronavirus. It's going to stop the aches and pains, though, that, if I can get the bag open, there I did. It's so easy to open, so easy to take. 4 pills. I take them in the first hour, and mind you, in hours 2 and 3. You've just got to go and get it and take the pills. Stone cold coffee this morning, not even lukewarm coffee, stone cold coffee. Icarian curcumin, resveratrol, and omega together combine to support the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that accompany aging, exercise, and commuting. If you're headed out to the car right now, in Atlanta, in Virginia, anywhere on the East Coast, in Louisville, wherever you are, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, go back and get the ReliefFactor.com. Do what I did. You want to feel better late in the day? Start the day the right way with ReliefFactor.com. The initial order is $19.95. Try it. The starter pack gets to you a 3-week supply, and then come right back. The next segment of the first hour of the Hugh Hewitt Show continues. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I want to go back and play a little bit more of Donald Trump and then take your calls on coronavirus. 1-800-520-1234. Should the United States, as Senator Cotton recommends, suspend all flights from China? 1-800-520-1234. Here's Donald Trump in the East Room yesterday talking about Jerusalem, cut number 11.
It's been a long and very arduous process to arrive at this moment. On Sunday, I delivered to Prime Minister Netanyahu my vision for peace, prosperity, and a brighter future for the Israelis and Palestinians. This vision for peace is fundamentally different from past proposals. In the past, even the most well-intentioned plans were light on factual details and heavy on conceptual frameworks. By contrast, our plan is 80 pages and is the most detailed proposal ever put forward by far. As I have seen throughout my long career as a deal maker, complex problems require nuanced, fact-based remedies. That is why our proposal provides precise technical solutions to make Israelis, Palestinians, and the region safer and much more prosperous. My vision presents a win-win opportunity for both sides, a realistic two-state solution that resolves the risk of Palestinian statehood to Israel's security. Today, Israel has taken a giant step toward peace. Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu informed me that he is willing to endorse the vision as the basis for direct negotiations. And I will say the general also endorsed, and very strongly, with the Palestinians, a historic breakthrough. And likewise, we have really a situation having to do with a race that is taking place right now. It will end, and we have the support, and it's very important to say this, of both parties and almost all people in Israel. They want peace, and they want peace badly.
They do want peace, and they do want peace badly. Now, coronavirus. Terry in Arkansas. Good morning, Terry. What do you think about what we've done and what we need to do?
Hi, this is Harry in Arkansas.
Sorry, Harry.
And, that's okay. Enjoy your show. Listen, I was on a Sydney to Houston flight with a very sick Asian lady, 40 or 45, coughing every minute for 15 hours on the flight. And I tried to call the CDC. They said, don't bother us. Call your health, state health. I called them. I couldn't get through. So I sent a note to Tom Cotton last night. He's my state representative. And asked him about looking into it.
Well, you don't know that she was from China, right?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, because lots of people get sick, and I've been near people who cough. The only people I'd be worried about is someone coming from Wuhan province who's hacking next to me for 15 hours. But that would, look, we're ill at ease. I just don't think we're doing enough.
Yeah, and United didn't want to do anything about it. So they offered me $125 to forget about it. So,
well, all I would just say is that people on airplanes, if you're coughing, cough into your elbow and tell your neighbors that you're not from Wuhan so that they might get sick, but at least they don't think they're dying. Thank you, my friend. 1-800-520-1234. A little more Donald Trump talking directly to the Palestinians yesterday, cut number 12.
Therefore, it is only reasonable that I have to do a lot for the Palestinians, or it just wouldn't be fair. Now, don't clap for that, okay? But it's true. It wouldn't be fair. I want this deal to be a great deal for the Palestinians. It has to be. Today's agreement is a historic opportunity for the Palestinians to finally achieve an independent state of their very own. After 70 years of little progress, this could be the last opportunity they will ever have, and last
right
for
there,
a lot of reasons.
That is the bottom line. Counter, look at the deal, counter with something that's extremely exorbitant, and negotiate. Get it done. Abbas. Just get it done. I want to do a market check because of coronavirus. Brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. AndrewandTodd.com. Boy, there are times to buy property and refinance property, and now is one of them. The 10-year Treasury at 1.64. 30 and 15-year rates have adjusted down over the last few days because, of course, money's pouring into the United States. You don't know what you can refinance your house for or buy property for until you call AndrewandTodd.com. They are lenders with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, 888-888-1172. Can you write down that number? 888-888-1172. Don't miss the window. Bad news in the world means good news for refinancing your home, getting money out, or buying property. 888-888-1172. Yesterday, Dow up 187, NASDAQ up 130, the S&P up 32 in a relief rally. That relief rally seems to continue this morning. S&P up 9, NASDAQ up 37, Dow up 63. But I note that the Hong Kong index was down almost 3% overnight. An indication that they do not believe they have it under control in China, an indication that our markets may be in for bumpy times as well. Now is the time to lock in that refinancing rate. Call Andrew and Todd today, 888-888-1172, or go to andrewandtodd.com, answer a couple questions. Bad news abroad, good news at home if you're a homeowner or you want to be one, andrewandtodd.com. Come right back, hour number 2, straight ahead. Morning glory, America. Bonjour. Hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening to the Hugh Hewitt Show. President unveiled a Middle East peace plan yesterday. I'll be joined later in the program by Robert C. O'Brien, his national security advisor, to discuss that. Robert Costa coming up as well. This hour, Representative Mike Gallagher will talk about it with me. I do want to do a little politics. Look, on the impeachment trial, everybody stopped talking, thank goodness. Now the senators get, I think, 16 hours to ask questions, and it goes back and forth. Democrats, Republicans, Democrat, Republicans. The leader, McConnell, the minority leader, Schumer, decides which ones to pose. They go up, they're given to the Chief Justice. He reads them, and he asks either the president's defense team or the House impeachment managers / prosecutors what the question is. They respond at any length they want. That goes on for 16 hours. Then they break and decide what to do next. It could all be over. I hope it's all over at that point. That's all I can tell you. That's all anybody knows. We don't know what the questions are going to be. We don't know if they're going to be interesting. God knows this has been going on a long time, and I'm sick of it. And I think they ought to do what Pat Cipollone said yesterday. Cut number 18. This is the White House counsel.
You know what the right answer is in your heart. You know what the right answer is for our country. You know what the right answer is for the American people. What they are asking you to do is to throw out a successful president on the eve of an election with no basis and in violation of the Constitution. It would dangerously change our country and weaken forever all of our democratic institutions. You all know that's not in the interest of the American people. Why not trust the American people with this decision? Why tear up their ballots? Why tear up every ballot across this country? You can't do that. You know you can't do that. So I ask you to defend our Constitution, to defend fundamental fairness, to defend basic due process rights, but most importantly, to respect and defend the sacred right of every American to vote and to choose their president. The election is only months away. The American people are entitled to choose their president. Overturning the last election and massively interfering with the upcoming one would cause serious and lasting damage to the people of the United States and to our great country. The Senate cannot allow this to happen. It is time for this to end, here and now. So we urge the Senate to reject these articles of impeachment for all of the reasons we have given you. You know them all. I don't need to repeat them. They've repeatedly said over and over again, a quote from Benjamin Franklin, "It's a republic if you can keep it." And every time I heard it, I said to myself, it's a republic if they let us keep it. And I have every confidence in your wisdom. You will do the only thing you can do, what you must do, what the Constitution compels you to do. Reject these articles of impeachment.
And look, they're going to, eventually, whether they do it on Saturday or sometime down the road, they're going to. That is a given. I do want to go to something completely not in the news, but I think very moving. Shaquille O'Neal was on TV last night reflecting tearfully about the death of Kobe Bryant. And it's a very moving thing. I just think you ought to hear it. Cut 31.
We up here, we work a lot. And I think a lot of times we take stuff for granted. Like, I don't talk to you guys as much as I need to. The fact that we're not going to be able to joke at his Hall of Fame ceremony. We're not going to be able to say, hi, I got 5, you got 4. The fact that we're not going to be able to say, if we would stay together, we could have got 10. Those are the things that you can't get back. And with the loss of my father, my sister, and my thing. That's the only thing I wish I could just say something to him again. Last time I talked to him was when we were here and I asked him to get 50 and he got 60. It's the last time I spoke to him. And I just wish I could have, so it definitely changes me. I have to, because I work a lot. You guys know what I do. I work probably more than the average guy, but I just really have to now just take time and just call and say, I love you. Rick Fox finally called me and said, man, I love you. B. Shaw called me. So I'm going to try to do a better job of just reaching out and just talking to the people rather than always procrastinating, because you never know. Life is too short. I could never imagine nothing like this. I was thinking the other day, I've never seen anything like this. All the basketball idols that I grew up, I see them. They're old. Like I used to be at home when you came to interview me, Ernie. I used to watch the great mile round and rebound. Now I'm working with him. I used to want to be Dr. J. He used to live next door to my mother in Orlando. My father used to tell me about the three great big men. I met them. I seen them. And the fact that we lost probably the world's greatest Laker, world's greatest basketball player. It's just, listen, people are going to say, take your time and get better, but it's going to be hard for me. I already don't sleep anyway, so, but I'll figure it out. My condolence goes out to his family, his mom, his dad, his sisters, the other families, everybody involved. Laker organization, I talked to Jeannie and Linda, and people here are hurting, especially in this organization. Some people have to get treatment, and some people just don't understand, because it hit all of us out of nowhere. I didn't want to believe it. I said to myself, please, I hope some butt-face made this up, and it's not true. I didn't want to believe it. But then after getting all the calls, and then you finally feel was concerned, it just my spirit just left my body. I just wish I could be able to say one last thing to the people that we lost, because once you're gone forever, and we should never take stuff like that for granted.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Shaq is absolutely right. Hug your kids, love your wife, love your spouse, take care of everybody in your life, and he's just right. Wanted to play that for you. Now I want to go back to politics, because the Iowa caucus is in 6 days. Joe Biden's working hard not to be irrelevant. He was in Iowa last night, cut number 2.
Hey, let's remember one thing. Why the man's on trial. I'm the second guy. He's afraid to run against.
Joe Biden, one voter at a time, not winning them over, cut number 25.
I'm going to support you if you win the nomination, because we got to get rid of Trump. But what are we going to do about climate change? Now, you say you're against pipelines, but then you want to replace these gas lines. That's not going to work. We got to stop building and replacing pipelines.
You got to go vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much, sir. We're going to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to vote you in the general if you treat me right.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm not.
Well, can I have a picture?
You're asking a picture of me. You're coming up and telling me you don't support me.
No.
My plan. Yeah, you did. You said
I said I would support you in the general.
In the general. I'm looking for a primary.
We're happy to get a number.
That's what I'm looking for, okay?
Just because we're trying to get.
You believe that Bernie can do something by 2030?
I'm actually supporting Tom Steyer.
Thompson, well, that's good. He's the guy that did
Thanks
more
so much,
coal
sir. We have a long line right here.
The entire country did.
Okay. All right, thank you. Happy to get him.
We got a picture?
The interesting thing, he was poking the guy in the chest on the left. He said, when are we going to call out Joe Biden for hitting people in the chest? He gets away with the physicality no one else does. He got pretty upset yesterday. Then he was hedging on whether he'll get behind Bernie, cut 32.
Does the party unite behind Bernie if he's the nominee? The whole party?
I'm not going to make judgments now, but I just think that it depends upon how we treat one another between now and the time we have a nominee. And I read yesterday there was a a mock caucus, and he didn't get 15, I didn't either, and his folks walked out. You can't do that kind of stuff.
Not a ringing endorsement of Bernie from Joe Biden. We got some more Joe Biden coming up after the break. We're getting close to Iowa. He's looking defeat in the eye. And by the way, Bernie is running away with it in California in early polling. Bernie's going to be their nominee. I voted for him first. I'm the first guy I know that voted for Bernie, so I'm way ahead of the pack. I know Emo is listening at Media Matters. Emo, would you please quote me? I voted for Bernie. I was first to announce it nationally, running away with the pack. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, and Mary. Play this a little bit. This is Joe Biden music. The Bidens are a hell of a group. You got to get all the Bidens together. Hunter and his brother and his daughter.
Frank.
And
Ashley.
There's got to be a brother-in-law somewhere. I know there's tragedy in his life, and I know his son, the AG, was much loved by the other AGs. I know that. I went to a gathering of the Attorney Generals, the Republican Attorney General, and they all couldn't stop talking about Attorney General Biden, Beau. But man, oh man, Elena Goodman, Washington, D.C. Examiner this morning. Ashley Biden organization received a $166,000 grant while her father was vice president. A Delaware not-for-profit organization received a $166K federal grant about the same time it appointed then Vice President Joe Biden's daughter as its executive director. What a surprise. And then yesterday, the Politico ran a story about Joe's brother and his island holdings, where he got a special sweetheart deal, cut it into three, sold one to a buddy, and the buddy then financed the other two. I can't remember, but it was another one of those deals where you just say, gosh, it's good to be a Biden. Meanwhile, the Never-Trumpers, according to David Drucker, the Never-Trumpers are not going to be able to get behind Bernie Sanders, but Joe Biden realizes he's losing to Bernie. Cut number 33. Joe Biden in Iowa. Go ahead, cut 33.
8 women, at least 4 or 5 people.
Is it dying on us?
That I think are totally qualified to be Vice President of the United States, but for me, it has to be demonstrated that whoever I pick is 2 things. 1, is capable of immediately being president.
Audio dyslexia, and I've for a long time. That's not because of age. I just can't put names together. But I'll tell you, Joe, no wonder Bernie Sanders is running away with it in California. Let's check the markets because of coronavirus. All right, brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian, good friends of mine. I'm killing them. I'm telling everyone about the interest rates, and the phone calls are flooding in because you can trust Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian. Better thing, go to AndrewandTodd.com, answer a couple of questions. They are lenders with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They lend you the money. They don't send you out to somebody in Cleveland or somebody in Columbus or somebody in Orlando. They lend you the money. They run your show. They can do it. They're licensed everywhere. 888-888-1172. I don't think they're licensed in a few states. They may not be licensed in Delaware. I think you have to be named Biden to be licensed in Delaware. 888-888-1172. They'll get your loan done, refinance, consolidate your debt, get your reverse mortgage. If you're a VA eligible, they'll get you 100% no money down loan. AndrewandTodd.com. And the 10-year Treasury right now is at 1.64% because money's flooding into the United States. We had a relief rally yesterday. The Dow was up 187 points. The NASDAQ up 130. The S&P up 32. It's continuing this morning. The S&P is up 10, the NASDAQ up 42, Dow up 75. Amazon is up $11 in pre-market trading after jumping $25 yesterday. Their earnings report tomorrow. Apple had great earnings. People are expecting our markets to do okay. China got hammered, 3% drop overnight. I want you to call AndrewandTodd.com today, AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172, and come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
I can think of at least 8 women, at least 4 or 5 people of color
Welcome back, America. The best running music ever. Africa by Toto. Mike Gallagher, Congressman extraordinaire from Wisconsin, would not know that because he only run little tiny baby races. He's never run a marathon. Congressman Gallagher, welcome. Good to have you.
Hugh, the thought of you running to such a lame song like that is very disturbing.
Have you run the Marine Corps Marathon, Congressman? You ever run the Marine Corps Marathon? You have?
I have run the Marine Corps Marathon.
And your time was?
I don't remember, Hugh.
Mine was 3:12. 3 hours and 12 minutes. I did that twice. I'm just wondering, have you made 3:12?
You mean 3 days?
I mean 3 hours and 12 minutes. It's in the books. You can look it up, Congressman. You're the Marine. You've beaten that, right?
Very impressive. Were you on a bike?
Oh, see, you Wisconsin people, you don't take defeat well. You Packers fans are a little bitter. You're like us Browns fans. We're in the same place. We're on the inactive list right now. It's just very sad to be bitter, but I'm recommending your pace will pick up if you listen to Toto.
Okay, I'll put that in my 80s, cheesy 80s mix.
All right, next I got cheesy 70s mix. All right, President Trump has just tweeted about John Bolton. For a guy who couldn't get approved for the ambassador to the UN years ago, couldn't get approved for anything since, begged me for a non-Senate approval job, which I gave him despite many saying don't do it, sir. Takes the job, mistakenly says Libyan model on TV, and many more mistakes of judgment. Gets fired because, frankly, if I listened to him, we would be in World War VI by now, and goes out and immediately writes a nasty and untrue book, all classified national security. Who would do this? I love John Bolton. He's a friend of mine. The president seems to be upset with him, though.
He does seem to be very upset. The timing of this is a bit odd. I will grant that. That the book went live on Amazon at almost precisely the same moment that this was leaked. And obviously John Bolton is claiming he does not know how it got leaked. I have always had good dealings with John Bolton. I think he is often right on the necessity of a peace-restraint foreign policy. I have no idea as to whether his manuscript actually contains the things that the New York Times says it does. I have reason to be skeptical of the Times reporting based on their misreporting during the Mueller investigation. But I'm also sympathetic to what Senator Ted Cruz proposed, is that if indeed you are dead set on calling John Bolton, well, there must be reciprocity. And so at a minimum, that would include Hunter Biden, if not Joe Biden, as well as Adam Schiff. So I have no clue what the Senate is going to do in terms of calling witnesses. We have 2 days of questions and answers. We'll see if Mitch McConnell has the votes to prevent witnesses. But certainly the timing of this is all very interesting.
Yeah, I am bored to death. I've been covering coronavirus, which scares the living daylights out of me. I've been covering the Middle East peace plan. Our friend Robert O'Brien's coming up next hour to talk about that. That's fascinating. I don't care about the Bolton book. By the way, I don't think Bolton let it go because it's bad marketing. You do not drop a teaser 6 weeks before. I think it is coincidence that the Amazon ad went up, but you do not drop the bombshell 6 weeks before the book drops, and they haven't even cleared the National Security Council process, so it might not pub for 2 months. It's just dumb. If everyone knows what's in the book, they don't buy it. So I'm not buying that it was Bolton. I don't doubt that there are some resistance types at Simon & Schuster. I don't doubt that there are resistance types in the National Security Council bureaucracy that our friend O'Brien is skinnying down, but I don't think it's Bolton. I just don't, Mike. Let's get to the important stuff. Coronavirus first. Admiral Stav is very concerned. Tom Cotton wants to shut down all incoming flights from China. What's Mike Gallagher think? The intel officer from the Marine Corps. Put your hat back on.
I agree with Senator Cotton, the second fastest man in Congress, that we do need a targeted travel ban. This is getting very concerning. We have more cases not just within China, but we've also seen some disturbing news out of Germany and elsewhere around the world. And so I think a targeted travel ban where we halt all flights from China and that U.S. citizens could be allowed to return home after they've gone through what Cotton referred to as appropriate elevated monitoring. I think that makes enormous sense. And I believe he referenced Benjamin Franklin's maxim that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I think there are a few other things that are apparent as this unfolds. One is that China's early warning and monitoring systems are clearly deficient. There's so much corruption in the CCP system that incentivizes covering things like this up. The 2003 SARS outbreak proved that to be true. And China's so-called wet markets, where, for example, you have humans slaughtering birds out in the open, are a huge source of this problem, and they should be shut down. This should be subject in any future trade talks with China. as well as Vietnam, by the way. And any short-term economic damage caused by a targeted travel ban would pale in comparison to the economic damage of a full-blown pandemic all across Asia. I mean, consider that SARS killed less than 800 people, but cost Asian economies approximately $40 billion in damages. The final thing I say, Hugh, it's a reminder that we need a domestic flu vaccine production capability. Most people don't know this, but President Trump issued an executive order in September 2019 to upgrade our domestic vaccine capability. And last month, HHS issued about $225 million in contracts for domestic flu vaccine capability.
Now, Congressman Gallagher, you mentioned the German incident. I want the audience who are just tuning in to understand. A Chinese visitor to Germany entered a business place, infected a person working there. That person infected 3 more. So there are 4 cases of Wuhan coronavirus in Germany that did not originate in China. They originated in Germany. So we have domestic transmission. We also have domestic transmission in Taiwan and Japan. No domestic transmission yet in the United States, but we got a plane load of people en route from Ted Stevens Airport in Anchorage to March Air Force Base for something of a quarantine. They're coming back from Wuhan. The domestic transmission is the most ominous thing, is it not?
I completely agree. And there are a few things that will test the ability of the federal government working in partnership with state and local governments more severely and strenuously than if domestic transmission picks up steam. And so, again, I think that is yet another reason why we should be aggressive in taking steps such as the targeted travel ban so that we do not find ourselves in a position where we're scrambling to contain domestic transmission. So I hope the president will work in partnership with Senator Tom Cotton. It pains me whenever I have to admit that Tom Cotton is ahead of the curve here. But in this case, he certainly is. And I stand ready to work with my colleagues on the Democratic side of the aisle to figure out how we can prevent this from spreading domestically in the United States.
All right, let's turn to the Middle East peace plan announced yesterday with great fanfare. Admiral Stavridis said in the last hour, this is the last exit ramp before the tunnel for the Palestinians, the best deal they will ever get. They ought to take it. My suggestion to them is to take the plan and counter with you're going to give us 50, I want 100 billion. You're going to give us this much land, I want 10% more. Yeah, make a counter offer. I don't think they're going to, but that's what I would do. Mike Gallagher, what do you think?
Well, I think it's important to recognize how significantly and permanently the dynamics in the region have changed over the last 15 years. In other words, 15 years ago, most so-called Middle East experts would have told you that Middle East peace, Israeli-Palestinian peace, was the most important issue, the fulcrum on which every other issue in the region turned. Now, I don't think any expert would put it in the top 3, possibly not the top 5. Indeed, what we're seeing here is a historic realignment between Israel and states, Sunni Arab Gulf states, that traditionally have not cooperated with Israel. And it's an alignment that's built in opposition to the true number one issue in the region, which is containing and rolling back Iran's malign influence. I actually think that makes the prospects of Israeli-Palestinian peace, which though not a first-tier issue is still an important issue, more likely, because it creates a situation like we saw yesterday, where you have a lot of Sunni Arab states, such as the Emiratis, it's not endorsing the plan, saying positive things about the plan. Even the more tepid statements that we saw from countries like Saudi Arabia were things that were unthinkable 5 years ago, let alone 10 or 15 years ago. So that is all a positive sign. If you dig into the details of the agreement, I think it, in the first instance, recognizes realities on the ground, which is to say that Israeli settlements are there to stay. Jerusalem will not be divided. But also the Israelis are not required to do anything until the Palestinians take a series of steps to show they're serious. The Palestinians do need to take a number of steps. I do believe this is probably the best agreement that they are going to get. And every day they delay, the worse their negotiating position gets. I would also say, finally, Hugh, there are some good technical proposals in the agreement, such as the creation of a new regional security organization, what they're referring to as the Organization for Security Cooperation in the Middle East. And the plan proposes a lot of steps that involve Jordan and Egypt. That is crucial. It is absolutely critical to have their support for this process. And so while I have never thought that the peace process was something to prioritize, it may just be possible, given that this is a bottom-up approach that starts with the idea that we need to focus on improving life economically in terms of security for the Palestinians. And having seen the top-down approach fail repeatedly from Democratic and Republican presidents, I think this is a very smart approach by President Trump, and I give him a lot of credit.
Congressman Gallagher, what is your biggest question about President Trump's Middle East peace promise?
Well, listen, I do think it's going to, given that the Palestinian Authority was not involved really in the process, even if they face significant pressure from the Jordanians, from the Egyptians, from the Saudis, from the Emiratis, from the Qataris, from the Omanis, it's going to be hard for them to engage in a process that starts with this as the opening negotiating bid without facing significant blowback from their domestic constituency. And so my biggest question mark, I think it's the question mark we always have when we go down this road, which is to say, is the Palestinian Authority capable of delivering peace? Are they even willing to take the necessary risk, or are they beholden to the more radical factions there, such as Hamas? And that is an open question. There's a ton of corruption within the Palestinian Authority. But Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, has to make a decision as to whether he wants to be remembered as an obstructionist who accomplished nothing, or someone who sincerely improved the future for the sake of Palestinians. And I would say to you, I've been there. I've been on the ground. There is a whole next generation of Palestinians who want nothing more than to provide for their families. They want a better economic future. And so hopefully we can put ourselves on the side of them and not with their corrupt leadership.
Mike Gallagher, Congressman Extraordinaire from Wisconsin. Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to him. Follow him on Twitter at Rep Gallagher. He reminds me of Honor Bound Coffee because he's a veteran, Marine Corps Intel officer. And Honor Bound Coffee, begun by Pete and Seth Talbot, is going to become your coffee supplier if I have anything to do with it. I'm ordering it. You ought to order it. Right now, they've got a great 2 bags for the price of 1 free as you enter into their subscription service. You go to their website, honorboundcoffee.com, and realize 100% of the profits from Honor Bound Coffee will go to military families. They're beginning with the Semper Fi Fund. They're going to spread out, but I want you to know, I know Pete and Seth. I know they're for real. I know their products, which include Relief Factor, which I'll tell you about in a moment. They just want to give back. And they want to give back to America's military families. So get your coffee from honorboundcoffee.com. Terrific coffee. Top of the shelf coffee. Best coffee in America. And when you sip your coffee in the morning, you'll be supporting military families. Honorboundcoffee.com. Also, time to remind you, relieffactor.com. I'll tell you, Mike Gallagher, if he gets out there and runs to Africa by Toto, he's going to feel a little bit of burn. Not the burn for Bernie, just the burn because he's kind of slow. Not that coordinated. But Mike Gallagher can get relieffactor.com. We can get him outfitted. If he'll go get the starter pack at relieffactor.com, $19.95 for a 3-week starter supply. For people who exercise, for people who age, and you're definitely doing the latter, and you should be doing the former, and especially for people who commute, whose backs are barking at them, relieffactor.com. Support for the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that come with exercise, aging, commuting, whatever it is. relieffactor.com. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back. 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. Are we doing enough on coronavirus? It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Biden, and you're listening to the Hugh Biden Show. It's produced by Dwayne Biden and engineered by Adam Biden. Your calls are screened by Ben Biden. And the reason we are the Biden Show is because we would like to receive a $175,000 grant and raises. Do you think, Dwayne Biden, do you think this will work?
It seems to be. I'll tell you what. It sure is a bigger chance of us making money than anything else.
Hugh Biden here, and I would like you to send me money. I'm just going to leave a little bit vague what my connection to the former vice president is. And Adam Biden and Ben Biden and Dwayne Biden are not going to elaborate too much on what their connections are.
Any special, mortgages we can get for private islands?
We will serve on boards.
We'll serve on boards.
We will start not-for-profits.
Yeah, we'll accept federal grants.
And so, welcome to the Hugh Biden Show. Glad to have you with us. I'm reading the story from the Washington Examiner this morning by Alana Goodman. Ashley Biden organization received $166,000 federal grant while her father was vice president. Yes, indeed. Hugh Biden Radio exclusively brought to you here. Let the money pour in. I do, however, need to tell you about people who may have done Biden accounting. They may need to call Axiom Tax Relief. Axiom Tax Resolution, excuse me. If you've got Biden accounting working for you, you will need actually Perry Cronin. Perry Cronin is my friend. He runs Axiom Tax Resolution. You may have just gotten your first look at your 2019 taxes and said, man, what happened?
If he was Perry Biden, just imagine what you could get done.
Yeah, but if you were Perry Biden, but he's not. He's Perry Cronin. And Perry Cronin will help you. If you got blown away by your tax bill or you're in tax trouble of any sort, you haven't filed in years, you have gotten out, you're behind, they've attached your stuff, I highly recommend you call Perry at 844-8-TAX-PRO. That toll-free number again is 844-8-TAX-PRO. Or visit Axiom Tax Resolution online at axtaxhelp.com. axtaxhelp.com. It's that time. The quarterlies we're doing the 15th of the month. Now you got to pay up on April 1. It's coming close. You're behind. You haven't filed. Perry is your guy. 844-8-TAX-PRO or axtaxhelp.com. You Steelers fans, that's spelled axtaxhelp.com. axtaxhelp.com. Let me play for you again. Joe Biden in Iowa, cut number 34. Yesterday, Joe was out there campaigning about the good old days.
40 years later to the month, in January of 2012, actually 2013, no wait a minute, you got elected in 2012, January 13. I was standing in the same place.
Joe Biden. No wonder Bernie is ahead of Joe Biden. Meanwhile, Donald Trump at a Jersey rally last night. Here's the president compare and contrast. Cut number 30. Cut number 30.
While we are creating jobs and killing terrorists, the congressional Democrats are obsessed with demented hoaxes, crazy witch hunts, and deranged partisan crusades. It's all they know how to do. The do-nothing Democrats. They have spent the last 3 years, and probably even before I came down on that beautiful escalator with our beautiful future First Lady, trying to overthrow the last election, and we will make sure that they face another crushing defeat in the next election. We are going to have a victory that's even greater than 2016.
Here is Donald Trump. Andy in Pennsylvania. Good morning, Andy. You're on the Hugh Biden Show. Do you have money to give me? Hello?
No.
Oh, Andy, why did you call? I expected you to give me money. Andy? Andy is gone. He's got a cell phone. David in Arkansas. David, welcome to the Hugh Biden Show. Do you have a grant for me?
Well, I have some information about the coronavirus and how it might be defeated the way they defeated Ebola in Nigeria.
Well, I actually was looking for grants, but go ahead.
Well, in Nigeria, they use something called nano-silver to deal with the Ebola virus.
No, stop. No, not going there. No, don't know anything about it. Wouldn't be prudent. Not going to do it. Not giving out solution. I'm going to go with the CDC on this.
He was born tragically without a sense of humor, wasn't he?
Not going to go with the home remedies for coronavirus.
Here's a hint, callers. When you call in, your name is, whatever your first name is, your last name is Biden.
That's it. That's a hint. And meanwhile, we are not interested in the home remedies for coronavirus. I'm interested in whether or not you think we ought to stop every single plane that has flown over China. That's what Tom Cotton wants to do, and there may be an advantage in that. Look, I'm laughing, but it ain't funny. None of this is funny. Next hour, the National Security Advisor joins me, Robert O'Brien, old friend of the show, old friend of mine, former law partner. I'll grill him. Don't you worry. You don't have to worry about that from me. I'm Hugh Biden, and we would like your money during the break. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Morning, glory, America. Bonjour. Hi, candidates. Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for listening. It's Wednesday morning. There is lots of news. Coronavirus spreading. Germany's got 4 cases of domestic transmission. Britain has canceled all incoming flights from China. Tom Cotton is urging the United States to do the same. The number has gone up to 5,900 cases in China, 130 confirmed deaths. Hong Kong is panicked. We also have a new Middle East peace plan on the table. We've got impeachment. We got a lot to talk about. We've got the guy to talk to it about us with us. Coming up, Robert O'Brien, the National Security Advisor at the bottom of the hour right now. Robert Costa. He is the host of Washington Week in Review with the Washington Post, NBC, MSNBC as well. Robert, good morning to you.
Good morning from the Senate.
I wonder if your ears were burning last week. I was talking with a new board member of WITA, and I told them that Washington Week in Review is a treasured American institution that I remember from my youth and that it is in good hands now. How goes the show?
It's going very well, thank you. I appreciate all the viewers on Friday night. We're seeing audience members across the country. New stations are adding us. People appreciate nonpartisan, vigorous reporting and civil conversation. It's old school, but it's working, thankfully.
It's old school, but you're a new host, and old school is the way to go on Washington Week in Review. I've been watching it since before you were born, Robert. I mean, it's been on forever. What year did it start?
It started in 1967.
Yeah.
It was made famous by Paul Duke, who was the moderator for 20 years, then Gwen Ifill, who was the moderator for 17.
Well, may you have runs just as long, if not longer than that. You're doing a great job. But now let's get to Washington Week in Review. Will you be talking about an impeachment that is over on Friday night or one that is just entering its witness phase?
It's hard to say if it'll be done by 8 o'clock on Friday night, but it's clear that despite McConnell saying yesterday to his members that he doesn't have the votes to prevent witnesses, the votes are almost there, if not there already. He's signaling to the members, you better speak up. If you want to have witnesses, you better show him your cards right now because he's moving fast to end this trial.
And we obviously have Senator, formerly Governor Romney in the check mark. I want to hear witnesses. Not so sure about Senator Collins that she's tipped her cards completely. Luther Murkowski is holding them close. I heard a report yesterday. 4 have said they want witnesses. I just can't count the 4 there. Robert, can you?
Well, it's a complicated thing to do a whip count here because, quote, wanting witnesses means a lot of things. For some, it means having 1-for-1 Bolton for Biden. At the same time, others think it just means bringing Bolton up if you're Senator Romney. So at this point, there does not seem to be 51 votes for just bringing Ambassador Bolton, but there are a lot of discussions about possible arrangements. The question is, will there be a deal? Could there ever be a consensus? At this point, it doesn't seem like there's a clear path to that option.
Now, Robert Costa, I am in charge of the Nixon Foundation, and so I care about archives. The questions that will be posed of the Senate, I asked Ted Cruz this earlier this week, from senators to the managers and to the president's team. Senator Cruz is going to type them out. I want them to be handwritten. I want pieces of paper that can go into museums forever. Have they decided on the process yet?
Yeah, they've decided on the process for questions. It's pieces of paper, just exactly like they used in 1999 with the Clinton trial.
So they're handwritten?
Handwritten.
Amen. Hooray. Now, what do you expect? Have anyone tipped their hands to you about what kind of questions they'll be posing? Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, has announced a couple online, but I don't know generally where the Democrats are going.
Well, I had a good conversation with Senator Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, last night as he was leaving the Senate, and I said, what are you going to ask? And he said, well, first question I'm going to ask is to the president's lawyers, why won't you allow witnesses? So that's his position. But most Republicans are going to ask about the House process. Some may ask about the Bidens, charisma.
Tell me a little bit more about Senator Manchin. I'm watching him very closely, man of integrity, man of honor. Obviously, West Virginia is a hugely pro-Trump state, but he won anyway. What's his bearing, demeanor, and attitude towards the days ahead?
He's pretty open about where he goes at this point. He knows he's under a lot of pressure to acquit President Trump. He's not showing his cards at all, but he's certainly not leaning into voting against President Trump at this point. He's someone who has been friendly with President Trump more than most Democratic senators, and he seems to have an open mind. And so if you're Charles Schumer, the minority leader, he's definitely a variable for you because he's not walking in lockstep, echoing the same Democratic talking points.
Have you had a chance to talk with Senator Doug Jones, Democrat of Alabama?
I have. It's interesting. Senator Jones seems to be a little skeptical of the article about obstruction of Congress. He may be one of these senators, a rogue senator who splits their ticket and maybe votes for one article but doesn't vote for the other. He's in a tough spot in Alabama. He's also like Manchin, trying to keep an open mind, not show too much about what he's doing. But at this point, he seems to be more on the Democratic side against Trump than on the Manchin side, which is more really, really open-minded.
Now, I want to bounce over to the Republican side. I'm not certain I am pronouncing her name correctly yet, Robert. Kelly Loeffler? Is that how you say it from
Kelly
Georgia? Loeffler. She's the new senator from Georgia. Yesterday, Congressman Doug Collins announced he will challenge her in the primary next year. This complicates life for Republicans and for Mitch McConnell a great deal. How much?
It's very complicated for McConnell because you got a messy battle for the Georgia Senate seat right now, and Doug Collins is going full steam ahead, and he's one of these guys in the House who says, I'm with President Trump 100% of the time. I've been at the barricades for him. Kelly Loeffler has been a major Republican donor without any real political footprint in Georgia beyond being a donor, and he wants this seat, and McConnell and Senate leadership are prepared to back Loeffler because she's the incumbent, but it's going to be messy because Collins is a fighter, and he feels wronged by Governor Kemp.
It is my reporting that Governor Kemp did not even interview Doug Collins, did not extend him the courtesy. So there's a personal element here. Honest to goodness, Robert, in politics, I wonder why make the easy ones hard? And Boris Johnson just did that with BeltWay, just blew away all of his American goodwill with a lot of national security conservatives by embracing BeltWay. Did that echo through the halls of Congress or in the White House yesterday?
It's echoing that people were watching the market as well. I mean, there's a lot of unease in the market. It went up yesterday after the big drop Monday. But there's concern about the health of Americans. Is the president going to go to Atlanta, to the CDC? What does this mean for the global economy if all these manufacturing centers somehow fall away or are struggling? It's a real issue. It's the issue probably globally, but impeachment is hovering over Washington for the moment.
Well, I said yesterday, the Church of D.C. is worshiping an impeachment, and the rest of the country is watching coronavirus. And I can't stress enough how Jim Talent is probably the smartest man in D.C. about this. He and Bob Graham used to co-chair the bioterrorism task force. He told me about the Johns Hopkins experiment. Does President Trump need the equivalent of Ron Klain, who became President Obama's Ebola czar? Does President Trump need someone in that role?
Well, I'm not here to advise the president, but it's clearly an issue that's only going to grow bigger, especially after impeachment is over. You have many senators talking about it, and if this thing spirals out of control, and with Huawei on the top of mind too, you see China again emerging as a real issue, maybe a curveball issue for 2020 that we didn't think would dominate as much.
All right, last question. You'll cover Iowa on Friday night on Washington Week in Review. I assume the numbers out here in California, where I am for a week, Bernie Sanders has surged to the top by double digits in the polling in California. What is your reporting, not your guessing, you're reporting on who's ahead?
It's very real. And it's not just talking to Democratic strategists. You see at the end of the day, I spent a week in Iowa covering Senator Sanders. I've been following his campaign really since 2015, 2014 even. This is a candidate who speaks to the populist wins in the Democratic Party, a lot like President Trump did to those populist voters in the Republican Party. And if voters are looking for a grievance candidate, a change candidate, but someone who's more on the left, obviously, than on the right, Senator Sanders is right there for that independent Trump-style Sanders voter. It could be a real battle. And a lot of people in the White House are taking it seriously.
Sometimes a man meets his moment. Sounds like Bernie Sanders is it. Robert Costa, thank you. Follow him at Costa Reports on Twitter. Follow him in the Washington Post on NBC, MSNBC, and, of course, Friday nights on Washington Week in Review. I'm watching now Fox Business. Robert O'Brien is on right now. He'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour talking about the Palestinian peace plan. Gone on his nice blue overcoat and his red tie, looking good. Robert always does. Old-time friend of mine. Time for me to check the markets, though, before he shows up. Brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian. Old friends of mine as well. I've actually known Andrew and Todd longer than I've known Andrew longer than I know O'Brien, but I've known Todd less. But it's years and years, and I trust all three of them. And I trust you to understand that if you need to refinance your home, now is the time. The only people who have made off with good news from the coronavirus are those people who are looking to buy a house or refinance a house. Because the 10-year Treasury is down to 1.64%. That means your 15-year loans and your 30-year loans are in the threes. You've got to call them, 888-1172. 888-1172. Andrew and Todd are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They are lenders. They are not brokers. Or better yet, go to their website, Andrew and Todd, 2dsandtodd.com, andrewandtodd.com. Answer a couple questions. I'll be right back to you. Everything is green this morning. The S&P is up 10. The NASDAQ is up 39. The Dow is up 119 as the relief rally continues. But overnight, Hong Kong plummeted almost 3%. Right now, coronavirus is a China problem, not a U.S. problem. I hope it stays that way. Stay tuned, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Not son of a sailor. I'm the son of a Biden. Hugh Biden, the new show, accepting federal grants. Welcome back. Donald Trump has tweeted. The president writes Mark Penn, Harris poll, quote, "It's time to end the impeachment trial," close quote, Fox and Friends. The president adds, "Just another political hoax," capital H, by the Dems. 25 minutes ago, the president added, "Remember, Republicans, the Dems already had 17 witnesses. We were given none. Witnesses are up to the House, not up to the Senate. Don't let the Dems play you." I must say, the president is in fine form this morning, fighting back. Banging on John Bolton, banging on the Senate. We will see what happens. I'm focused on coronavirus, where in Germany, there are now 4 domestic cases of transmission, meaning a visitor from China entered a business, and at that business, he infected someone who went on to infect 3 other people. So they got 4 instances of domestic transmission. 6 countries, including China and Germany, have confirmed human-to-human transmission. It's a bad situation. China has ordered an unprecedented quarantine of more than 50 million people. But over the week, 150,000 people moved from mainland into Hong Kong, causing, I am told, a nurses' strike, incipient nurses' strike in Hong Kong, because they don't want to treat people like this. Quote, "Americans should know this is a potentially very serious public health threat, but at this point, Americans should not worry for their own safety," said Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary Alex Azar. Senator Tom Cotton called for America to emulate what the Brits have done, which is suspend all flights from China into the United States. We'll continue to follow it. Every morning I come in here, I look up, and the number of cases is almost doubled in China. The death toll, I don't believe their numbers. I just don't believe them. And when we get domestic transmission in the United States, if we get it, that's when all the stoplights will be turned red at our ports of entry. Not even thinking about sailors at sea yet, not even thinking about people moving by rail and land, just thinking about airplanes right now. And God help Africa if it gets into a refugee camp. It's a fast-moving virus, not always deadly, always dangerous. We'll keep you posted about it. What do markets think about coronavirus? Brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Abakian, AndrewandTodd.com. The only people who are doing well because of this pandemic scare are people who want to buy or refinance real estate. The people to do that with are Andrew Del Rey and Todd Abakian and AndrewandTodd.com. They are lenders, not brokers. 888-888-1172. The Dow bounced back yesterday up 187. The NASDAQ was up 130 points. It's going to go higher today. Apple had great earnings last night, and Amazon earnings are expected tomorrow night. S&P up 32 yesterday, and all the futures are green this morning in the United States. The S&P up 10.5, the NASDAQ up 39, the Dow up 119. And so there's a relief rally going on in the United States after a sell-off on Monday, but Hong Kong was down almost 3% overnight. Because that relief rally is not happening in China, which is bearing the brunt of this. And Andrew and Todd are the people to call if you want to refinance when rates are great. 888-888-1172. Joe Biden in Iowa yesterday talking about vice presidents and him, cut number 33.
I can think of at least 8 women, at least 4 or 5 people of color that I think are totally qualified to be Vice President of the United States, but for me, it has to be demonstrated that whoever I pick is 2 things. 1, is capable of immediately being president, because I'm an old guy.
Because I'm an old guy. Joe Biden staring it in the face. I'm not sure that's the message to be putting out there, but Joe runs a Joe campaign. Don't go anywhere, America. The National Security Advisor joins me next on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Look, I'm
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. We'll listen a little bit Fleetwood Mac while we wait for Robert O'Brien, the National Security Advisor. I think I'm getting stood up. It's always your friends that stand you up. They know you'll forgive them. I'll tell you, he was just on Maria Bartiromo, so I know he's around the White House. And he's on my schedule. Well, you shouldn't have killed it right there. It was the payoff. Oh, people can't hear this? Okay, then never mind. Let me check on the markets while we wait for O'Brien, see if he shows up. Brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172. Sierra Pacific Mortgage is the place to begin your lending, 888-888-1172. Coronavirus has spread to 6 countries where human-to-human transmission has occurred. China and Germany among them. It's in the United States, but we have not had human-to-human transmission yet. But we're bringing a plane full of people from Wuhan and then to Alaska. Now they're headed to March Air Force Base in Riverside, California. When they land there, they'll be screened again and quarantined for a period of time. But as of yet, no human-to-human transmission in the United States, and that's good. People can recover, no deaths in the United States either, and that's why our markets are doing fine. The Dow's up 187 yesterday, the NASDAQ up 130, the S&P up 32. But now we are joined by Robert C. O'Brien. Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. Good to have you.
Hey, it's great to be back on the show, Hugh. It's been a while.
It's been a while. I have to disclose to everyone you were a very close friend. We are former law partners. Indeed, I wrote the preface to your 2016 book, While America Slept. So with that out of the way, I want to cover 4 things with you quickly. Bolton, Huawei, coronavirus in the Mideast. I don't even know if you can tell me, but have you read Ambassador Bolton's book? And if so, can you tell us about it?
Well, it's under the normal review process here at the NSC. Anyone who is at the White House and has access to top secret or sensitive compartmented information has to submit their books for review. The ambassador did that. It's under review by the career staff and for classification purposes and otherwise. And we'll see how that turns out. They're in contact with Ambassador Bolton's lawyers on the process, and that's all I want to get into. It's Ambassador Bolton's book. It's you're always concerned when anyone immediately leaves work at the White House and writes a book and talks about their interactions and that sort of thing with the president. That's something that's not the greatest form, but it's under review by the career staff. They'll deal with Ambassador Bolton, and we'll see how it plays out.
Secondly, Huawei. I just saw you tell Maria Bartiromo, we'll go old school if we have to, paper documents. You explained Five Eyes to me originally years ago. This is a major compromise of Five Eyes trust. I am really disappointed in Boris Johnson. You are being the consummate diplomat. But inside the White House, are there not harsh words for our the close relationship, the special relationship?
Well, one thing I'm not going to do, maybe unlike others, I'm not going to talk about what's being said inside the White House. What I will tell you, and we've talked about this before on your show, Hugh, is Five Eyes is the most important enduring intelligence sharing arrangement that this country's ever had. It gives us a huge edge against our adversaries and great powers such as Russia and China. China has been trying to chip away at Five Eyes for many years, and unfortunately, they've come right in through the front door, and they're getting Huawei in the 5G system in the UK. But look, we'll still have great relations with the UK. We'll figure out how to deal with things, and as I said, if we have to do carrier pigeons or have couriers going back and forth with briefcases handcuffed to their arms, we'll do that. But we'll get through it. This is just a very disappointing development that was. And it's disappointing not just for us, but for the UK. I think there are a lot of members of the UK Parliament. I think there are a lot of British people that don't want the Communist Party of China to have access to their healthcare records and their tweets and their social media and their bank records and all those sorts of things. So it's I think it's a disappointment not just for us but for the people of the UK, and we're going to keep working with the Brits and hopefully they'll reconsider.
Coronavirus. Senator Cotton yesterday called for suspension of all inbound flights from China. Is that on the table, and do you believe that you are adequately prepared for the coronavirus in the United States?
It's an incredibly dangerous virus. We're meeting on it every day. The president's being briefed by his advisors, Alex Azar, by CDC. on a almost hour by hour basis. So we're watching it carefully. We did note that the British Airlines, one of the great airlines in the world, and with a very international reach, has suspended direct flights in and out of mainland China. So we're monitoring that. I believe that was a company decision, not a UK government decision, but I think that sends a message to the American people. The travel advisory at the State Department has been up to level 3. So we're encouraging folks without essential business in China not to go to China, and we'll keep looking at things. But this virus is deadly, and it's a matter of great concern to the president and the administration.
Now to the Middle East peace plan, the main event. I'm reading from the New York Times. They say reaction from Arab countries surprisingly solid. A statement from United Arab Emirates Ambassador to Washington, Youssef Al-Otaibi, called the plan a serious initiative that addresses many issues raised over the years. And Saudi Arabia's Minister of Foreign Affairs issued a muted statement saying it appreciates the efforts of President Trump's administration to develop a comprehensive peace plan. I believe Bahrain, Oman, and Egypt as well supportive of this. Are you generally encouraged? Is the president encouraged by the reaction of the Arab states?
Yeah, we've never seen anything like this before on a peace plan. There were a number of firsts that took place yesterday. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that this is the first time that a president in his first term, with an election coming up, has risked political capital to try and bring peace to the Middle East and solve this very thorny problem that's bedeviled presidents my entire lifetime of peace between the Israelis and Palestinians. Number two, we got the Israelis, who are in the midst of a very difficult election campaign, actually 3 election campaigns in a row. We brought them together with Gantz and Netanyahu. I think that was the first great accomplishment of this plan, to get the Israelis to come together as a vast majority of Israelis, to get them behind the peace plan. And then third, you've seen this really strong positive reaction coming out of the Middle East, coming out of Europe in favor of the idea of the Israelis and Palestinians sitting down and talking about this plan, which is a 2-state solution, Palestinian capital in the eastern municipality of Jerusalem, access to the holy sites, Muslim holy sites for all Muslims from around the world, so they can make pilgrimages to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a $50 billion investment plan that could turn this Palestinian state into the Singapore of the Middle East. There are a lot of great things. If you're a Palestinian, there are a lot of great things in there for you. You don't want to miss this opportunity.
Now, Mike Gallagher, your friend and mine, said the biggest problem is what will Abbas do? The president of the Palestinian Authority, Admiral Stavridis, earlier in the program said this is the last exit before the tunnel in front of the Palestinian Authority. I've said I'd come back and ask for more money and more land, but I'd make a counter offer. Do you have a partner to negotiate with, Robert C. O'Brien?
Well, I hope so. I think, the playbook for the Palestinians over the last 40 years is any time an American president, whether, it's Jimmy Carter or Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, anytime an American president tries to get the peace process going, the Palestinians stop it. So I think, that we can expect that sort of initial reaction. But I think once the wave breaks of a couple of days and they realize that their close friends in the Arab world and their supporters are telling them that this is a good deal and they should sit down and negotiate. And like you said, Hugh, these guys are master negotiators on the Palestinian side. They're going to ask for more land. They're going to ask for more money. Why not? But sit down on the table and do it and get involved in the process and try to create a great future for the Palestinian people. They're very talented, highly educated, hardworking folks. This is their opportunity to really shine, and we hope that the Palestinian leadership will give them a chance to have their own state and have a great future.
Now, of course, Hamas is not a partner to this deal, but do you have any signs at all that within the Palestinian Authority there are people who do want to have a conversation, whether it's backdoor and quiet at the beginning or open and out in front of everyone? Do you have any positive signs?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of Palestinians that want what we all want. They want a great future for their kids. They want their kids to be able to grow up in peace, to go to college, to have opportunities to get a good job. This plan would cut the Palestinian unemployment rate in half. It would double their GDP, potentially triple their GDP. So we think there are a lot of Palestinians, including folks that work in the PA, that would love to sit down and negotiate a great deal for their future. Now, Hamas has come out against it, and I thought this morning, well, that's a dog bites man story. I mean, a terrorist organization is against a peace plan, so there's that's not a surprise. But we think there are a lot of great Palestinian folks, including folks that live under Hamas's grip in Gaza, that would like to spend their time building a tunnel for a high-speed rail that connects Gaza to the West Bank instead of having their leaders try to build tunnels into Israel to commit terrorist acts. So Let's put their tunnel building skills and their ingenuity and their engineering ability to build in a great new Gaza for the people of Palestine and stop with the terrorism.
Last question, Ambassador O'Brien, National Security Advisor to President Trump. Would President Trump be willing to host a Camp David 2.0, including President Abbas, Prime Minister Netanyahu, maybe Benny Gantz, as well as Arab state representatives? Is there a Camp David 2.0 out there?
Oh, I think it'd be great to get all those folks together at Camp David. It's a beautiful site, wonderful place, and also a historic place when you think back on the Israeli-Egyptian Camp David Accord. So I think that would be. I think there are a lot of wonderful places in America that a peace deal could be signed or negotiated. Camp David's certainly at the top of the list because of its historic connection to the region, and so I think that'd be fantastic. I think President Trump would do whatever it takes to bring peace to the Middle East. He's shown a tremendous amount of courage, and you saw that in the rollout yesterday, the great response that we received. So I think President Trump would be happy to host a lot of folks here, and whether it's at Camp David or at the White House or in the middle of an Iowa cornfield in the great American heartland, I think he'd love to get those folks together and help bring peace to that region.
Ambassador O'Brien, always good to talk to you. Come back early and often. Thank you, and good work on the peace plan. I hope it is successful.
Thank you, sir.
Robert C. O'Brien is an old friend. Got to ask the questions you got to ask, but those are the rules. Those are the rules. You got to ask the breaking news at the beginning. I think it would be in Abbas's best interest to call up Trump and say, I want to come to Camp David tomorrow. I want you to bring Netanyahu back, and I want to hammer out the details. You offered us $50 billion. I need $100 billion. You offered us 70% of the land I want. I want 90% of the land I want, and let's move some areas. Let's get a deal done. Abbas can go down in history. Abbas has got it in his hands to make this happen. Screw Hamas, go Abbas, and get it done at Camp David 2.0. Right in front of them. Huge opportunity. But the Palestinians, according to Golda Meir, never miss a chance to miss a chance. We will see. Admiral Stavridis said the last exit before the tunnel. Time for ReliefFactor.com. There you have it. There's the little bag right in front of you. It's got beautiful North Carolina blue wrapped in lime green. 1995 gets you started on it. If you're out exercising today, if you're out aging today, you're definitely doing that. But especially if you're commuting and your back is killing you, you wish you had taken ReliefFactor.com. I wish you had taken ReliefFactor.com for the last 3 weeks. You'd be feeling better. Supports the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that dog everybody who's got the long commute. I know right now if you're leaving for the Silicon Valley or San Francisco or Oakland up north, or you're driving in from Moreno Valley and headed to L.A., I know you've got an hour and a half, 2 hours ahead of you, and you wish you had taken Relief Factor. You make a mental note every day to order it. Don't let another day go by. Get to work. Go to ReliefFactor.com and say you want it done. ReliefFactor.com. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back. Today's final segment of the Hugh Hewitt Show coming up. We'll check markets one more time right here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Last segment of today's show. I'm joined by Pete Peterson. He is the dean of the Pepperdine School of Public Policy at Pepperdine University in the great area of California. Unfortunately, saddened by the death of Kobe and the crash. Not far from Pepperdine, right, Dean?
That's right, Hugh, and great to be with you just over the hill from us. I've been by that spot at least a couple hundred times, and suffice it to say that whole area is never going to look at the hillsides of Calabasas in the same way again, a real tragedy.
Now, I want to ask you about two things, Dean Peterson. First, just very quickly, we're a Pacific-facing state, California, and coronavirus is here already. Are you running any models at the Pepperdine School of Public Policy on what the impact of a virus like this might be on the California economy?
Well, we are actually just for Pepperdine. Pepperdine actually has a program in Shanghai, and the decision was made just yesterday to close down our Shanghai spring semester program. So we're actually bringing students back from China and continuing to watch the virus. We have a number of students from China, both in the policy program and across the different schools of Pepperdine University. So it is something that we're watching very closely.
And I think at the Nixon Library, the foundation of which I head, we've seen tour cancellations of Chinese visitors. And so obviously I modeled a decrease in attendance for my budget and my committee, my board. I think everyone in the United States has got to be doing that, especially if they're dependent upon foreign travel in any way, shape, or form.
No, I think you're right, Hugh. It does make sense. We don't know where the guardrails are on this yet. Obviously, every day it just seems that we're seeing more countries affected by it and more cases. And so, especially for universities in the West that have a number of students and interactions with China and Southeast Asia, it's important for us to track this, and Pepperdine is responding.
Now, let me ask you about what I really wanted to talk to you about. The story that surfaced a few days ago that from a few years leading up to 2016, 2% of California left, and it was the wealthiest 2%. That's like a death knell, isn't it, Pete Peterson?
Well, it is, and unfortunately, it's a barbell as well, because the poor and the middle class are leaving as well. A survey was taken actually by Cal Berkeley late last year and found that over half of California voters had at least considered leaving the state in 2019, and so across the board, and usually for due to issues related to housing costs, California has just become inhospitable. Particularly for the lower middle class and the middle class.
Now, how do you arrest that fleeing? Because that which begins gets momentum. People see, in fact, right. I got asked yesterday, I'm in California for a week, got asked yesterday, I know you're a Virginian now, how many people are following you? And it's like the reverse wagon train. It's not like I was the first, nor will I be the last.
No, it's an important point that you're making. The LA Times has actually run a series of stories just in the last couple of weeks about the number of people going to Texas, and once people, neighborhoods, networks of people start leaving the state, it is something that builds on itself. And so I think it's important, an important story for Californian policymakers to follow, but unfortunately, it shows no sign of abating, and because these issues, especially relating to housing costs and living costs, California was recently ranked 47th in living costs for retirees. You're seeing a growing number of people leaving the state. We got the census, obviously, this year, and most people are predicting that when the census comes out, California will actually lose a congressional district for the first time ever.
I'm talking with Dean Pete Peterson of the Graduate School of Public Policy at Pepperdine. Dean, there is a quantifiable problem, which is housing. And Nick Kristof, of all people, along with his spouse, Cheryl Wadun, have put out a new book called Tightrope. And for the first time, we got two liberals, New York Times columnists, saying the problem in California is regulation of housing, zoning, and land use costs. Isn't that remarkable? It's finally breaking through after 30 years of hitting it with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, Hugh, and I know that you're familiar with some of these issues, having lived in Orange County. I live in Santa Monica, which is in many ways the ground zero for these problems. But California, in this past year, was 37th in housing permits, comparing other states. There was a time back in the 80s we were top 10, a real engine for housing growth. And where we've fallen is in many ways reflective of the burdens and the regulations that we put not only in permitting, but the types of materials that can be used, all the environmental concerns that come around. I had a friend of mine that was actually rebuilding a house in Santa Monica, and the cost for using particular kinds of light bulbs and lighting fixtures, all related to regulations and environmental costs, is really driving down the amount of housing that we're building here.
Pete for CA. That's where you can follow Dean Pete Peterson of the Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, always on top of the news from the West that moves east. Pete for the number 4 CA. Pete for CA. Thank you, Dean Peterson. Thanks to, I just want to remind you, it's now Adam Biden, Ben Biden, and Dwayne Biden here on the Hugh Biden Show. We'd like those federal grants to arrive. We will be the Hugh Biden Show again tomorrow, but actually we'll be back tomorrow, America, on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.